Hey everyone, welcome back. So today in this tutorial we're going to be working on a design for the clocks, the Walmart clocks specifically. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how to go ahead and do a quick template in Photoshop, and we'll go through the steps really quickly, put it all together, and send it off for printing. So when you're starting a new document, in this case, because the Walmart clocks are so small, they actually fit on a standard 8.5 by 11. So when you start a new document, we want to make sure that your width is 8.5 inches. If it's set to pixels, then go ahead and just click over here to change it to inches. And just type in 8.5 by 11 if it's not already that preset already. Your resolution will be 300, and everything else will pretty much look about the same. If it doesn't, you can always change your settings. You're going to go ahead and click OK. So the design that I'm going to be using for our clock in our tutorial is this one right here. It's a peacock one. And as you can see, I got a couple of different things going on. So the first thing we're going to actually end up doing is the outer circle, the main part of the face. So to do that, you're going to go off to your side into your toolbar. For me, I actually have this set to the custom shape, so I'm just going to go ahead and go from my custom shape tool to our ellipse tool. I'm going to make sure that my fill is going to be white, and our stroke is actually going to be transparent. I don't want a stroke on here. Now you can go ahead and just draw a circle, and doesn't matter how it looks because we're just going to go ahead and fix it. We're going to type in what our settings is. So once you let go of where your circle is at, a property box should pop up. If it doesn't pop up, you can always mess with this part as well as a different area for the settings to manipulate the box. But the properties is just another spot here. In this case right here, we have it set to pixels. We want to go ahead and set it to inches. And all I'm doing is right clicking on the mouse to change that. I'm going to go ahead and lock my aspect ratio, so whatever I type for the width, it'll show up as for the height, because we want a perfect circle. So the size that I used is 7.25, and actually it's keeping the ratio from what it was, and now it is set to 7.25. And I'm just going to go ahead and exit out from this area. So in order to know that I'm perfectly center, when I go ahead and click on my circle and I left click hold with the mouse and I move it, you can kind of see these purple guidelines. They'll let me know if it's dead straight down the center as that purple line, that I'm exactly at the halfway mark. And if I kind of come down a little bit, move around, I'll actually end up being like dead center. And it just kind of, there we go. So it seems like it's showing me that it's dead center right here. So I'm just going to leave that there. And to make sure that this doesn't move, I'm going to come over here to my layers panel and I'm going to lock it. So at least this way, if I accidentally touch it, it's not going anywhere. Alright, so if you have a face panel, in this case, the face panel that I have is a preset one that I purchased from Design Bundles during the dollar sale event. This is where I got mine from, and this one is basically just one out of the many that I chose to do. So wherever you have your design or whatever clock face you want to use, you go ahead and drag it and pop it right over here onto your work area. Now with this one, we want to make sure that it's 7.25 as well. So in this case, I want to make sure that when I hit Control T, as in Tom, and this one is actually set to 7.28. So I want to go ahead and change that to a 5, and that should be good. I'm just going to hit the check mark here. Alright, now if I go ahead and drag, left click drag, it'll, well, I'll have to unlock this one. If I left click drag, it'll select these two, the white circle and the face. I can come up here to the horizontal centers and also the align vertical centers. So it'll go ahead and make it perfectly aligned. I'm going to go ahead and lock my white again. So wherever your design is, that's going to be the next thing that you'll do in this part. And I had this one as well. So I already had made this design just to kind of make this go a little bit faster for us. Alright, so once you drop your design in, you'll go ahead and position it to where you think you'll want it to be. Now I'm going to hit Control T so that I can kind of bring in the sides a little bit so I could fit it in there. And once Photoshop decides that it's going to stop thinking, then definitely we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so I just want to go ahead and stretch it this way, but I don't want the ratio to be the same. Alrighty, now I want to go ahead and Alright, so to make sure that our peacock is not going to print outside the circle, and of course we want it behind the numbers, what we're going to do next is create a clipping mask. So I'm going to go ahead and drag my peacock and this extra little leaf. I'm going to drag it below the clock face layer. So with the peacock, the main one, the layer is going to sit on top of the white circle, and I'm just going to go ahead and create a clipping mask. So with the peacock layer selected, I'm going to right click on my mouse and click Create Clipping Mask. Or I'm just going to create clipping mask. Alright, so everything looks pretty good. Now, as you can see, the face kind of looks too bold. It blends in a little bit too much in certain spots. So to go ahead and create a white offset, you're basically going to go and either double click onto your layer, the face clock layer, or come down to the FX button and add a stroke. This is going to add a stroke to anywhere there's an outline within the face of the clock. So and let me go ahead and highlight the effects real quick because I hid them just so that you can see how it's done. So you might not be able to see yours because it's set to 1 pixel. We want to set ours to about 9. Maybe you want it more, maybe you want it less, a little less dramatic. It just all depends. But in this case, with this design, I thought a 9 works well. The other thing too I want to mention is the position of where your stroke will be going. You can do it to where it's on the inside of, let's say, inside of each black area of your face clock, but in this case, even doing it center may not look as good. No, it does not look good. But outside looks perfect, so the stroke is going to sit outside of each area here, which would mean the numbers, the 2 outer rings, and the inner ring. Alright, so that's pretty much it right there. The last thing we need to do is to create a circle here that basically we will cut out so that we can actually fit it on the clock itself. In this case, I used 0.35 inches. So the way we'll do that real quick is going over to your ellipse tool, or if you need to, right click to find your ellipse tool, come to fill. You can choose black. If you don't have black in here, you can definitely find your black. Let's see. Okay, the fastest way would probably be to go into your color picker, left click, and then drag all the way to the corner where it's a whole bunch of zeros so you can get a true black. Or if you are looking for a specific color for whatever reason, you can actually just pick your color off your design. My stroke is transparent still, which is perfect, and now I'm just going to go ahead and left click drag to about 2.35. And if it's not perfect, don't worry, because once again we're just going to right click over here, change it to inches, and we were not too far off. Look at that. I'm going to deselect the link here so that I can go ahead and type in 5. And I'm going to go ahead and close this out because we are good to go, just to make sure that I'm correct. Alright, perfect. So I'm just going to go and drag, and we're going to try and find the center. Let's see. I'm going to go and unlock my white. I'm going to select my face panel. Select my face panel or layer. Hold the shift key on the keyboard. I'm going to click on the white circle or the white circle layer, and then I'm also going to hit my new layer of the black. And I'm just going to do the same thing again. I'm going to align the horizontal centers and align the vertical centers as well. So at least I know that I'm perfectly, centered both horizontally and vertically. So now our design is ready to be printed. Now it would be ready to be printed. If you're just going to print it through your regular printer, do not mirror your image, whether it's here in the design area or mirror it in when you go print. So in this case, I will show you real quick, because since if you're not going to sublimate it, then you can just print regularly. So in this case, I have a 3640. Make sure that your mirror image is not selected. If it comes out backwards, it's most likely because that is check marked. So you'll go ahead and print it as needed, and you can print it on the Inkjet cardstock or Inkjet glitter cardstock and just cut it out as normal with a pair of scissors. Or then the next step, if you're going to want to use your Cameo to go ahead and cut it out perfectly, especially for the center so that you're not getting any color, then this is what you would do. But in this case, because we don't have the registration marks on here, we would have to save this as a JPEG and transfer it into Silhouette. So the next thing we would do is come down to go to File, go to Save As, and you're going to title this, let's see, you'll title it as Peacock Clock or whatever the name is, and you'll go ahead and save it as a JPEG or a PNG, up to you. Once you have that saved, then we'll be able to go into Silhouette. Alright, so the next part, if you're wanting to use the Silhouette print and cut aspect to go ahead and cut your clock out perfectly, after you designed your clock in Photoshop, then you would save it as a JPEG and bring it into Silhouette so that we can go ahead and add the registration marks and to go ahead and print it out as a transfer so that we can go ahead and press it and run the cardstock through the machine to have a perfect cutout. Now, your page setup should be, of course, Cameo, whatever size your mat is. In this case, we want the width and height to be 8.5 by 11, since it's basically a sheet, a regular letter size paper that we're going to be working with. We want to go ahead and turn our registration marks on. And then of course we're going to bring in our design. Now, if your design happens to just drop in and it blows up into a large size, no worry. All you have to do, because we saved it as 8.5 by 11, all we got to do is type in here for our width to be 8.5 and our height to be 11. And that should be exactly the size that we need. And that should be good. Cool. Alright, so now we need to make sure that our marks are just a little bit wider. And I'm just going to lower the inset and let's see, thickness. We can increase our thickness. If you're afraid that the glitter might be too reflective and it won't be able to read your registration marks, then you can go ahead and increase the thickness if you like. And then as far as the length goes, you can increase it to whatever you like. We could do this size here. So everything, it looks pretty good so far. If you like to go ahead and, if you like to bring your registration marks in to make it a much more tighter fit so that it's not a large area, but since it's just a sheet that we're cutting, there's not much space we can save anyway, so you can leave it just as is. But it's just to kind of give you a quick little overview, not getting too much into the details. Now, if you're used to working with HTV, especially with like the glitter and stuff, you're used to taking your image and reversing it. In this case, this is not what we need to do at all. Leave your image as is, even if, same thing with sublimation, you're pre-programmed to just reverse it, flip it. No. Where we're going to do this is going to go over here into the print area. Have your printer selected, and you're actually going to go into your preferences. Make sure that you have the correct size of paper. So in this case it's 8.5 by 11. It's going to match this here. That way your printer doesn't kind of guess and resize your print and mess up the whole thing. The most important part is this here. When you go into your More Options tab, you want to make sure that your mirror image is checked. This is the part that's most important, so that when you go ahead and sublimate onto the glitter, it will sublimate correctly, so that once it's sublimated, your registration marks are on the correct side and your design is actually in the correct way. So once you have all those there, click OK, and then you're ready to go ahead and select print.
Alright, so now with our transfer printed, as I mentioned before, the transfer needs to look like this, where your registration marks are opposite and your design as well. So doing it the way I was showing you, not by automatically reversing your design as you usually do with when you're working with HTV. In this case, we leave it alone and we just went into the print settings and mirrored it that way. So here is the Recollections glitter cardstock paper, and here's the UPC code if you can see it. Now you can go ahead and take this off if you like. Doesn't really make a difference. However, I will go ahead and take it off. Right now I have my heat press set to 400 degrees for 60 seconds at medium pressure. And with this, you really don't need to have any heat tape, because once it's pressed, the coating, the glitter coating, actually kind of compresses. It creates like a sticky type seal. So I already have my protective sheet underneath, and with the lighting I can see that my registration marks are where they need to be and my design's right where it needs to all be. Perfect. Let me get my sheet on top, and we're going to press this for 460 seconds. Okay, so carefully take the transfer off in one swoop. And now our transfer is ready to be placed into our Cameo to be cut out perfectly.
Alright, now that you have sent your design to be printed, the next step that you will have to do is, one, make sure that you do not move your design at all whatsoever. Especially once you hit print, we want to keep it the same, because whether you do this step before or after printing, we're going to need to trace the outer circle and the inner circle, so that we know that when we go cut, it's going to cut the outside and that little circle perfectly. So you'll go into your trace, select trace area, and that's, let me go, whoops, I'm going to hit Control Z, and I'm going to go just a little bit farther. And all I'm going to do is select Trace Outer Edge. Alright, now my outer edge is traced, and I could see it right here. Now I'm going to select Trace Area again, and I'm only going to select right around this circle, and then I'm going to select the Trace Outer Edge. Once you've done that, then you can actually take your design and drag it off to the side. Now we are actually ready to go ahead and print. Now that we have our design off to the side, we are now ready to go ahead and send this to our Cameo, so it'll print right exactly where we wanted it, which is the outer circle and the inner circle. So now that we have everything that looks good, we're going to go ahead and send it. So as far as what your settings are, it's going to depend on your preference, on what tool you have, how your machine works. So I have mine's kind of set up to where it's pretty much good. I'm going to go ahead and select 2 passes, and once I go ahead and get my Cameo turned on, I'm going to go ahead and set up my design on there, and I'm going to go ahead and run it through, and let's see how well it cuts it for us. But so far, this is the aspect on how to go ahead and get a good clean cut, especially that little circle in the center. If you don't want it to look jagged, you want it to be nice and clean, and you've been curious on how to do the print and cut feature as far as using glitter and stuff like that, this is how you do it. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on over and take a look at how it comes out.
Okay, so now we're at the last step, and which is basically taking our clock off and disassembling it and adding the face to it and reassembling. Now to kind of recap, just once again, there is the Inkjet printable glitter paper, which in case you decide that you rather just put it through your printer. This one is the one that I found at Michael's, and let me see if I can get a good zoom on that. Maybe a little blurry, and I apologize, but I'll send a picture if you need it. But it's in the Michael's scrapbook paper section, and all I did is I ran this through the printer, and you don't need to mirror it, you just print it straight from either Silhouette or Affinity Designer, even Photoshop, and you can just simply just use a pair of scissors and just cut around it as so, just to give you an example and some options on how to do these clocks in case you just don't feel subbing it on glitter cardstock and running it through your machine, or if you don't have a cutting machine, which is fine, you could always do that. And then this part is like the trickiest. Just kind of, I totally messed that up. You probably want to use smaller scissors, but just to kind of give you an idea. with some smaller, thinner tip scissors, you should be able to get that. Or you can use an X-Acto knife with one of those self-healing mats. But this is just to go ahead and show y'all. And so here is one with, or just a regular printer paper, glitter. Of course, one of the members contacted me and said that there is a brand at Walmart that's also glitter, that's just regular copy paper that can be ran through the printer as well, your regular printer, not your sub printer. Of course, just be careful if you do bend it, you can get a crease, but just keep in mind that's how you do that. So we're going to put this off to the side. Of course, here's one that I just used regular paper on. It was a little bit easier for me to cut the center out, but this was just for an example. So you can just use regular paper or even cardstock. And let's see. And just to show y'all what I subbed on as far as our regular, it was just the regular Recollections glitter cardstock paper. This one's the 8.5 by 11. Because this is small, our clock will fit perfectly on here. So you don't necessarily have to get the large 12 by 12. You could just easily save a couple of cents and just get this size. And you can also save, you know, the amount of glitter paper you use. And of course, if you forgot from the earlier in the video, when you print, let's say using Photoshop or Silhouette, you do, well, if you're using the registration marks in Silhouette, do not mirror your image. Don't do anything, leave as is. When you go into your print settings, you go into the More Options tab, and that's where you check mark mirror. That way your transfer will come out like this, where the registration marks will come out in the spot, so that when we go press it, see how if we look from the back, the registration marks will be in the correct spot and your design will be in the correct position. So now I'm going to go ahead and peel off my cardstock here. And I use the print and cut feature off my Cameo. Looks like this side got a little bit stuck. Okay, there we go. And you can see the center dot just kind of came off. So now we have this one, and this is what we're going to be using. Now you may notice that the colors are a little bit darker. Anytime I print from Silhouette using Cobra inks off of Silhouette, my colors come out a little bit darker. Alright, so to go ahead and take this clock apart, it's super easy. These are $3.88 currently, the time of this video, at Walmart. So you just remove, twist. On the back side, you're going to notice that there's these screws. You're going to have to take those off. Walmart sells either the Hyper Tough little miniature kind of screws or the Black & Decker. And the size that I had used was this one, which is the 25 millimeter screwdriver. And we're going to take each one of these off. Once you go ahead and unscrew it, then you can just pop the top off like this. We could just place this off to the side. So the first thing we're going to do is take off the seconds hand, minute hand, and the hour hand. And by doing that, let's see if I can get it. You're just going to pop this straight off. It may require just a little bit of tugging and working it out. And when you take off those screws, I'd probably put them in here as well, because there's a lot and don't want you to lose them. Alright, so on the back side, you're going to notice these little clips here. You'll probably need to use one of these to go ahead and pry it out. And then once you pry it out, now you don't need to pry it out, but in case you do, that's how it is. And then all you would have to do is put it back. And putting it back, you just kind of put the clock in the upright position, the battery goes down. and you just snap it back in. So that's in case if you do want to take the back out for whatever reason. Now to attach this, you could try and take this off, but it's glued down pretty good. I tried myself to see, so I can just go ahead and copy it. But I mean, as far as scanning it goes, I tried to, but it's on there pretty good. So this is what my clock will look like. See how it's a great fit. There's a little bit of space, which is fine. Now to go ahead and put this on, you have some options. You can use some spray adhesive. You could use maybe some of like cement glue. If you're using, as long as you're using like a thick paper, you could probably use regular glue. But I'm going to advise to use more of a glue that's going to stick, that will last a while so that it doesn't come apart and kind of put pressure against the minute hand, and because then at that point your clock will just kind of get stuck. But for me today, I'm actually going to use the repositionable adhesive dots. I thought these would be pretty cool to try. And let's see, let me get this opened. I thought these blue dots would be pretty cool to use. I'm just going to kind of put them around, not too many. I thought about using ones that were, these are a little bit thinner. They're not thick and puffy like some of the other glue dots. I figured maybe keeping it more flushed will avoid the paper being too thick and messing with the hour hand. And that's there. Alright, so this part next is kind of crucial because you want to make sure that your numbers are aligned. So I'm going to kind of work at it this way, where I could see the 12 and the 1. And you just kind of press down, then we should be good. And it's not going nowhere and it looks pretty flush. Now you're just going to kind of reverse everything that you did. So here's your hour hand. And you'll know which one it is because the hour hand slips in perfectly where it's at. You won't be able to get your minute hand on there, so don't worry about forgetting which way it goes back. It actually goes back fitting perfectly. Okay, press that down, and the last part would be the minute hand. And there we go. Last thing is to kind of line up the dots here, and then once you go ahead and screw everything back on, you have a clock. Whether it be glitter or just regular cardstock, or if it's subbed, or just using, you know, just your regular printer. The rest would be up to you how you want to do it. But hopefully this tutorial took you from the beginning on how to set up a template, how to get it going, and if you wanted to use your silhouette, how you import your design, as well as how you use your print and cut feature, and basically taking it apart, putting it all back together so that you have a fantastic clock. Thank you guys for joining me. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop your comments below in the video, or if you would like to ask me privately, by all means, go ahead and inbox me. Thank you guys again, and I'll catch you guys on the next tutorial.